Welcome back. U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is continuing to see backlash after recent comments he made concerning white nationalism.
Joining us live now to discuss this topic and more is WSFA's Washington correspondent Peter Zampa. Peter, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer addressed this today on the congressional floor. What did he and other lawmakers have to say about it?
Yeah, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York really just took off on Tommy Tuberville on the Senate floor today, using a lot of time to really blast his recent comments about white nationalism not necessarily being racist and saying it's a matter of opinion. I want to read you a little bit of what Chuck Schumer said today. He said, the definition of white nationalism is not a matter of opinion. White nationalism, the ideology that one race is inherently superior to others, that people of color should be segregated, subjected, and relegated to second-class citizenship, is racist down to its rotten core. And he also said Tommy Tuberville is fanning the flames of bigotry and intolerance. So really not mincing his words there. And Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, a member of Tommy Tuberville's party, said that white nationalism is unacceptable in the military and across the country. So both sides really coming together to say Tommy Tuberville was wrong in his comments. And we should say Tommy Tuberville seemed to walk back those comments today, saying that white nationalists are racist. So an interesting 48 hours for Tommy Tuberville.
Peter, staying on Capitol Hill, senators grilled golf officials over the proposed LIV Golf PGA merger today. What came out of that hearing?
Yeah, forgive me for this one, but they really teed off on these PGA officials and their proposed merger, the framework deal that they came to with the Saudi-backed public investment fund LIV Golf Tour. Now, there are a lot of questions around this because of the alleged human rights abuses, because of the alleged connection between Saudi Arabia and September 11th, those attacks, the killing of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi. All of these things lined up make it look like Saudi Arabia is trying to do what's called sports washing, trying to hide their bad behavior because they're taking over the entertainment industries. And these PGA officials had to answer questions, and frankly, they said, look, we're in survival mode. As soon as LIV came about, they started stealing our players. They've got more money than us. They've got the ability to win lawsuits because they have a never-ending pit of money, $700 billion compared to $1 to $2 billion for the PGA Tour. So it was a fight that they really just couldn't afford to pick. And by joining these forces, the PGA Tour is confident they'll still have a majority of control over the decision making when it comes to world golf. They think it'll just be better to have all these golfers together. But some senators also asked, well, what if a player has criticisms of the Saudi government? What's going to happen to them if the Saudi government controls golf? So a lot of these questions we still just don't know the answers to because the ink isn't dry on this thing yet. There's no final agreement in place.
Peter, the president had his first day of NATO meetings in Lithuania today. What happened today at the NATO summit?
Yeah, it was another newsy day in Europe for this president and for the European countries. The president had a couple of bilateral meetings, one with the Lithuanian president, who is obviously hosting President Biden this week, one with President Erdogan from Turkey, who's had a big 24 hours after lifting his country's blockade on Sweden's entry into the NATO alliance, a historic moment. But Ukraine, we thought they would dominate the headlines, and they really have today because they're also trying to join NATO. Right now, given that they're just embroiled in this war with Russia, it's not really possible because Article 5 in the NATO Charter would say all 32 countries would have to join that war effort all of a sudden, so that's not going to happen. But President Zelensky really expressed his frustration today on his way to Lithuania, saying, look, I just want assurances. I want some certainty of a timeline, of a formal invitation to join this, and I want to think that we're not just part of a bargaining chip if you go to deal a peacetime resolution with Russia. So still a lot of confusion, a lot of hours to go, though. The White House expecting the president to meet with President Zelensky tomorrow.
And Peter, former President Donald Trump's legal team is now asking for a delay in his classified documents case. What was the reason for their request for that delay?
This doesn't come as a shock to really anyone. Legal experts I've been speaking to throughout this entire process have said the Trump team is going to try to delay this thing until 2024 or after, hoping for a Republican to get in the White House, maybe him, so he can just throw this case out altogether. Now, we don't know if they'll get that far, but the Trump legal team saying, look, this is going to have a huge impact on the election if you hold this trial. This can't happen. It's election interference. How are you going to get a fair jury during a trial like this? How are you going to be able to use Donald Trump's time when he's supposed to be campaigning for his election? All of these things they're citing, and also saying the complexity of the case, the classified documents involved, the pretrial motions we still need to get through. All of these things adding up to a lengthy delay, and we still may have that lengthy delay because of all the things I just laid out. But the Department of Justice wants to see this begin in December. Now it's up to Judge Eileen Cannon to make a decision. We should say that's a Trump appointee. We'll see which happy medium she chooses.
Our Washington correspondent, Peter Zampa, thank you so much for keeping us up to date on what's happening in our nation's capital.